We shall move to questions without notice. Are there any questions? And I give the call to the Honourable, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care. The Albanese government has promised to deliver 83,000 new home care packages. Minister, how many of these promised packages have been delivered?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the Leader of the Opposition for her question. In the last term of Parliament, the Minister for Communications moved the new Aged Care Act through the Parliament with bipartisan support and, indeed, cooperation from those on the crossbench as well. As part of the new Aged Care Act, which provides for a rights-based framework for older people receiving care in Australia, we also see the Support at Home program to which the Leader of the Opposition's question pertains. This is an entirely new program. It is an overhaul of the old home care packages program. We've seen enormous growth in the demand for home care across our community. In fact, since 2020, the home care program has grown from 155,000 people to over 300,000 people. And in federal government expenditure terms, that growth looks like 800% growth over a decade. Now, the Leader of the Opposition is quite right. Support at Home, which will come into effect from the 1st of November, along with the new Aged Care Act, will deliver an additional 83,000 home care packages in the form of Support at Home, which will mean that 83,000 additional older Australians, on top of the more than 300 who are already receiving care.
Order. We'll hear from the Leader of the Opposition on a point of order.
Mr Speaker, the point of order is on relevance, and with respect, I've listened to the Minister for half of the allotted answer time, and he hasn't answered the question, which was very tight and very direct. How many of these packages have been delivered?
I thank the Leader for her point of order. The Minister was asked a specific question about a number, and as she knows under the standing orders, I can't direct the Minister to answer in the way she would like. But as long as he is making it directly relevant, he can't go into alternative policies or what the opposition is doing. He's got to make it relevant, and he is doing so by talking about the new packages and when they're coming in. I know you'd like a number, but at this stage he's being directly relevant. I'll continue to make sure he is. The member for Durack, the Minister in continuation.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As I was saying, Support at Home will come into effect from the 1st of November alongside the new Aged Care Act, which provides the legislative framework for the new home care approach that we are taking. We will deliver an additional 83,000 packages from the 1st of November in the first 12 months of Support at Home. That's on top of the more than 300,000 Australians that are currently receiving home care packages who will be transitioned into the Support at Home program. Between now and November, we will continue to allocate packages every single week to older Australians who are in need of care. We will continue to allocate them at an average of above 2,000 packages per week, and every single Australian who is assessed through the clinical assessment program, or process rather, as high priority will receive their package within a month. Mr Speaker, the Albanese Labor government is absolutely committed to ensuring that older people all across Australia receive the care that they need and that they deserve.
The call to the honourable member for Ford.
My question is to the Prime Minister. How is the Albanese Labor government strengthening Medicare while easing cost of living pressures for Australians?
The call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Ford for his question, and indeed he understands and is proud of the fact that Labor created Medicare, and it's also a fact that Labor created the PBS. And of course our Labor government is very much focused on strengthening both while delivering real cost of living relief. Now, in our first term, we brought down the cost of a PBS script from $42 to $30. That was the first time that PBS scripts had actually been lowered. Ever since it was introduced, they'd gone up every now and again over the years so that they reached that point. But we reduced it from $42 to $30, consistent with the policy that we took to the 2022 election. And indeed, that was the first reduction in the cost of medicines in 8 decades, promised and then delivered. But we know that there is more work to do. So at this election, of course, after I addressed the big Pharmacy Guild conference, the first Prime Minister to do so, we promised to slash the cost of a PBS script to just $25. But importantly as well, Mr Speaker, we have frozen the cost for concession card holders to just $7.70 for the rest of the decade, making PBS medicines at $25 the cheapest they have been since 2004. Now, bulk billing is, of course, at the heart of Medicare, and it's also at the heart of our plans to ease the cost of living. So we've tripled the bulk billing incentive. First, we did it for concession card holders, and then we are now doing it for all Australians, investing $8.5 billion to cover all 26 million Australians. But in addition to that, we're delivering 50 additional Medicare urgent care clinics, meaning there'll be a network of some 137 of these clinics that have already serviced 1.6 million Australians. In addition to that, we're establishing 1-800 Medicare, a 24/7 health advice and bulk billing hotline. Now, Medicare is a Labor legacy. It is central to what makes us the best country on earth. Our government will strengthen Medicare and we will defend it, so all Australians can get the high-quality health care that they deserve, making an enormous difference to the health but also to the living standards of Australians.
Give the call to the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care, and allow us to assist the new minister. Of Labor's promised 83,000 new home care packages, 0 have been delivered. Meanwhile, more than 200,000 Australians are still waiting for either a home care package or an assessment of a package. Will the minister apologise to these 200,000 elderly Australians and their families for this betrayal?
Order. Give the call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the Leader of the Opposition for her question, and I can perhaps assist the Leader of the Opposition to better understand some of the matters to which she refers to. Firstly, the Support at Home program, to which the Opposition have been supportive in moving the initial legislation, provides the legislative framework for support at home. So the members opposite will understand that the legislation they voted for is a requirement for support at home packages to be delivered. So those 83,000 can begin to be delivered from the time that the legislation comes into effect. Secondly, as I mentioned before, in the meantime, we continue to deliver packages each and every single week, the average being above 2,000 packages per week, to ensure that, in the meantime, Australians continue to receive the care that they need. We will ensure that every single Australian who is assessed as high priority will continue to receive their package within a month. And from November 1st, we will continue to invest in the Support at Home program as the key mechanism for delivering the in-home care that older Australians tell us that they want.
Give a call to the Honourable Member for Macarthur.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. How is the Albanese Labor government ensuring that life-changing medicines continue to be listed on the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme? Why is this so important?
Give a call to the Minister for Health and the Minister for Aged Care.
Thank you, Speaker. Before I answer that, I wonder whether, on indulgence, I can welcome the red T-shirts to the chamber. People with lived experience of early onset bowel cancer. Rates of this are exploding in Australia and many other countries around the world. They've come to Canberra talking to members across the chamber about their deeply powerful personal stories. And on behalf of the chamber, Mr Speaker, I'd like to thank them for doing that over the course of today. Now, I thank the member for Macarthur for that question. He knows very much about the PBS, and as the Prime Minister said, it truly is one of the core pillars of Australia's world-leading healthcare system, yet another feature of our healthcare system introduced by another reforming Labor government almost 80 years ago, Mr Speaker. It delivers access to the world's best medicines at affordable prices. And this government has been working hard to make those prices even more affordable, Mr Speaker. 4 waves of cheaper medicines policies in our first term of government have already saved Australians more than $1.5 billion in co-payments at their pharmacy counter, Mr Speaker. But those huge savings don't account for the huge benefit of 350 new or amended listings that we have made to the PBS in our time in government, Mr Speaker. The member for Macarthur, a deeply experienced paediatrician, for example, knows just how impactful asthma is to Australia's children and young people. Every day, almost 40 children are hospitalised through asthma, and tens of thousands more struggle with everyday activities like playing sport or playing in the playground. Today is the beginning of National Asthma Awareness Week, so it's a terrific day to announce a new PBS listing that takes effect today of Dupixent, a highly effective medicine for serious asthma which is not responding to even quite high-intensity treatments, Mr Speaker. Kids like Jack, who is a 10-year-old from south-western Sydney, first admitted to the Campbelltown Hospital when he was just 3, but even on a preventer inhaler, Mr Speaker, Jack's mum has been saying he couldn't play sport, couldn't run around with his friends at birthday parties. But several months ago he got early access to Dupixent, Mr Speaker, and his mum Sarah said recently it's been a miracle. Last week we had our school sports carnival and Jack came third. Previously he wouldn't have even been able to take part, Mr Speaker. That's the beauty of the PBS. Before today's listing, Jack's family would have paid $11,000 a year for that. From today, they'll pay $31, and from the 1st of January next year, if the Senate passes our bill, they'll pay just $25, Mr Speaker. Great for Jack's health, but also great for his family's hip pocket.
Give the call to the member for Indi.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care. Last week, the Department of Health and Aged Care confirmed that there are more than 120,000 people waiting for a home care assessment, on top of the 87,000 people waiting for a package. The department also confirmed that no additional plans have been released beyond the attrition rate. Will the government release 20,000 new home care places now to stop the waitlist growing longer?
Call to the Honourable the Minister for Aged Care and Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for Indi for her question and acknowledge her genuine interest in ensuring that our reforms to aged care deliver safety, dignity and compassionate care to older Australians across all of our communities. In the last term of parliament, as I said, the Minister for Communications, along with support from across the parliament, passed the new Aged Care Act, and we're preparing to implement it on the 1st of November, which is just 2 months from today, along with the Support at Home program to which the member's question pertains. At 31 March this year, the quarterly National Priority System waitlist showed 87,597 people who have been approved for a home care package through the clinical assessment process. As I've said earlier, we continue to allocate an average of more than 2,000 home care packages to people on the NPS every week, and those assessed as high priority will continue to receive their packages within a month. I'll say it again, those assessed as high priority will continue to receive their packages within a single month. Assessment for broader aged care services forms a different process, a related one but a different one. We acknowledge that wait times for aged care assessments are longer than we would like, and we are working to address this. Record levels of Australians are both seeking and receiving home care services, more care to more Australians than ever before. Last year alone, over 521,000 home support and comprehensive assessments were completed, and we currently have more than 300,000 older Australians receiving home care packages. Only some people waiting for an assessment will ever end up on the national priority system. The assessment list contains those seeking lower-level care, along with significant crossover and duplication of numbers on the national priority system. For example, 99% of people waiting for a home care package at their approved level are already receiving home care through a lower-level home care package or approved for Commonwealth Home Support Package services, and so are already receiving some level of care. Median wait time for an aged care needs assessment from when a referral is issued to when the support plan is completed is currently 25 days and continues to reduce under our new single assessment system. There are a number of reasons why home care packages are freed up, but the important thing here is that every allocation of a package means another older Australian gets the care that they need. Mr Speaker, we know the system is not fit for purpose, and that's exactly why we're reforming this system from the ground up. Big reforms don't happen overnight, but we're working to deliver a smooth transition in just 2 months from today, one that minimises impacts to older Australians and gets them the care that they need quicker than it has been done before.
Give the call to the member for Cunningham.
Speaker, my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Women. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to deliver better choices, lower costs and better health care for women?
Call to the Minister representing the Minister for Women.
Thank you very much, and can I thank very much the member for Cunningham for her question and, of course, her interest in advocacy in women's health. Can I also acknowledge both the previous and current Assistant Ministers who have done such a magnificent job in promoting women's health policy. Of course, this government is building Australia's future through strengthening Medicare and delivering cheaper medicines as part of that. These investments will deliver more choice, lower costs and better health care for women, but also help with the cost of living and lifting women's living standards. This week, of course, is Women's Health Week, and it is a chance for the whole parliament to focus on the issues that affect over half of our population. Earlier this year, Labor, of course, announced an historic $790 million women's health package to bring more choice, lower costs and better health care for women. We introduced cheaper contraceptives, including for some of the most used contraceptive pills that are now listed on the PBS, and thousands of scripts have been issued since we made that decision, making a real impact for women's cost of living. We've also expanded support for women experiencing menopause with greater Medicare support and a new Medicare rebate for menopause health assessments, and that is now available alongside new training for professionals and the first ever clinical guidelines and a national awareness campaign on menopause. We've also opened over 22 endo and pelvic pain clinics, with 11 more of them to come, again making a significant and material difference for women across this country. And of course, from the 1st of July 2025, as I said, 2 new Medicare benefit schedule items were introduced for menopause and perimenopausal health assessments, with approximately over 2,500 women already accessing that scheme. We've delivered the first PBS listing of a new menopausal hormone therapies in over 20 years, and now thousands of women are able to access that. But of course, from the 1st of July this year, greater support was also being provided for women who have complex conditions such as endometriosis and pelvic pain, with 2 new MBS items also introduced. This means Australian women are getting the medicine that they need. We know that last week, through the House of Representatives legislation to see scripts costing no more than $25 from the 1st of January next year passed this House. We hope that it passes the Senate this week. The last time scripts were this low was back in 2004, over 20 years ago. Over the last 3 years, we've worked incredibly hard to make sure Australian women are heard when it comes to their health care and to help with the cost of living, as well as lifting the standards of living for women. Strengthening Medicare makes a difference for women across this country.
Before I call the member for Grey, I'll acknowledge a few guests in the gallery today. I'm pleased to acknowledge delegates from the Greater Whitsunday from the electorate of Dawson, including Councillor Kelly Bever, Councillor Greg Williamson and Councillor Rye Collins. I would also like to inform the House that President of the Gallery is Mr Eli Sharabai, a former Israeli hostage, held for 491 days and accompanied by the Ambassador. And I also notice the Honourable Warren Ench, former member for Leichhardt, in the gallery today, with the founder and managing director of Gurindji Aerospace, that's the CEO, Mr Daniel Joinby. Welcome to you all. Give a call to the honourable member for Grey.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care. In my electorate, a 90-year-old constituent who suffers from Parkinson's has been told it will be up to 12 months before he receives a home care package. His daughter has to give up her permanent job as a teacher to care for him. As a result of Labor deferring the commencement of home care packages from July 1 to November 1, a vulnerable 90-year-old Australian is suffering for too long. Will the Minister say, as immediate priority, expedite the delivery of this man's package before it is too late?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for their question. This is clearly an important case to the member and to the community. I acknowledge the difficulties being experienced by people, such as the member's question refers to, and if you can provide me, or the member can provide me with the details, I'll personally follow up as a matter of urgency to see what can be done.
Order.
But stories like this remind us exactly why our reform program is so important. Our generational reforms will deliver aged care of the highest quality for older Australians, the people who have given so much to our country and who deserve nothing less than the very best care. Now, central to this is the Support at Home program, which will make it possible for older people to live independently at home for longer, with higher levels of care available close to family and within their own communities. With an ageing population, demand for home care packages has been growing very, very fast. Today, we have more than 300,000 Australians receiving a home care package, and that's double the number from about 5 years ago. Mr Speaker, as I've said before, we are delivering more care to more Australians than ever before. From the 1st of November, as Support at Home begins, we will make available more than 80,000 new home care places in the first 12 months of Support at Home. And until then, my number one priority is making sure that older Australians continue to receive services, which is why packages are being released every single week to the people who need them most. Right now, more than 2,000 new packages are being allocated each and every single week, and I can assure the House that anyone and everyone assessed as high priority through the clinical assessment process will continue to receive their package within a month. Mr Speaker, the short delay to commencing the new Aged Care Act is about ensuring that programs like Support at Home are fully ready for older Australians and their families. Now, from the 1st of November, we will deliver the extra packages. We will ensure that those people who are currently receiving home care continue to receive that home care, and we will continue to work across the parliament to make sure that older Australians receive the very best care that they possibly can.
There's far too much interjection from the member for Nichols. He'll leave the chamber under 94A. We simply just cannot have continual interjection after interjection after interjection. It will not be tolerated. The House comes to order. We shall hear from the honourable member for Sturt.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. How is the Albanese Labor government strengthening Medicare by opening more urgent care clinics?
Call to the Minister for Health and Ageing, the Minister for Disability and the NDIS.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member for Sturt, the first Labor candidate to win the seat of Sturt since the 1960s, Mr Speaker. And as a candidate, the now member for Sturt was one of the most passionate advocates for our women's health policies, joining me at a number of key policy announcements. But she was also a campaigner for a stronger Medicare more broadly, and in particular her commitment for an urgent care clinic in Adelaide's East. Mr Speaker, last term we promised to deliver 50 urgent care clinics, and we delivered 87 of them, Mr Speaker. All of them open 7 days a week, extended hours and, importantly, fully bulk billed, Mr Speaker. So all you needed to take was your Medicare card, Mr Speaker. And already almost 1.9 million Australians have been seen in an urgent care clinic. A third of them kids under the age of 15 who've fallen off their skateboard or their bike or injured themselves at Saturday afternoon sport. And a third of all consultations have been on the weekend, Mr Speaker. Importantly, the majority of participants—
The Minister will pause. The member for Lyne is now warned. So I'm just going to ask you to cease interjecting for the remainder of this answer and question time. Just someone left for that precise moment, but we're just going to hear from the Minister in silence.
Thank you, Speaker. And a majority of people going to these clinics say otherwise, that have had to go to the local ED. These clinics, Mr Speaker, are particularly making a huge difference to parents when their kids have suddenly fallen ill or got injured. Last fortnight, I visited the Elizabeth Medicare Urgent Care Clinic with the member for Spence yet again, Mr Speaker. I've been there a number of times, and you just have to look at Google Review to see it's full of stories of parents doing exactly that, Mr Speaker, like Felicity, who had to take her daughter, who has a disability, already 3 times to that clinic, or Kelly, who took her son when he split his head open to the clinic, or Jessica, who'd recently taken her 2-year-old whose hand was swelling dangerously after a particularly nasty bite, Mr Speaker. All of those parents would otherwise have ended up at the Lowell McEwen Hospital Emergency Department waiting for hours and hours and hours. Our 87 clinics, there's no doubt, Mr Speaker, no matter what they say opposite, are making a real difference. But we said to the Australian people at the last election we want to do more, and that's why we promised another 50 urgent care clinics on top of that, Mr Speaker. And 3 of them are already open. 44 of them are already subject to an open tender process, and the remaining 3, just a small number 3, will have their tender process open very soon, Mr Speaker. And I'm delighted to say that one of those 44 currently open for tender will be in East Adelaide in the electorate of Sturt, Mr Speaker. Another example of candidates like the member for Sturt and this government delivering on the commitments we gave to the Australian people.
Order. When the House comes to order, we'll hear from the honourable member for Wide Bay.
Thanks, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care, and I refer to the government's decision to delay home care package rollouts from the 1st of July to November 1, and almost 5,000 elderly Australians have died in the past year while on a waiting list for a home care package. Will the minister apologise to these 5,000 families who have faced this tragedy and lost a loved one? And, Minister, how many more elderly Australians will have to die waiting for the government to stop the delays and commence the rollout?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for the question. I'm always saddened when we hear of older Australians, whether they are in care or waiting for care, passing away. It is always distressing for people across the parliament and from any political party or crossbench group to hear of those stories. I offer my condolences to those families. It's the greatest example of why our reform process is so very important. Now, the deferral to which the member's question refers is essentially arising from the nature of the legislation that had bipartisan support and was passed through the last parliament. The legislative framework for the Support at Home program is enshrined within the legislation. The Support at Home program cannot begin before the legislation comes into effect. That will happen on the 1st of November, and from the 1st of November we will deliver an additional 83,000 packages under the Support at Home program, as well as continuing to support the more than 300,000 Australians who are currently cared for under our record home care packages program.
Good call to the honourable member for Barton.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Multicultural Affairs. How is the Albanese Labor government strengthening and building upon the success that is Multicultural Australia.
To the Minister for International Development, the Minister for Small Business and the Minister for Multicultural Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the wonderful member for Barton for her question. I welcome her to this place. She has already made an incredible contribution, and I know that she will continue to make an incredible contribution while she's here. For the first time, Mr Speaker, Australia has a standalone Minister for Multicultural Affairs in Cabinet, and I must say I'm incredibly humbled to be appointed to this position, and I'm excited to have launched the new Office for Multicultural Affairs. Speaker, if I may, I take a moment just to reflect on the composition of this parliament here today, one that is now beginning to reflect modern Australia, one that is very different to when I first delivered my speech here in 2016. And in this 48th parliament, we have the most multiculturally diverse government this nation has ever seen. Across the chamber, we now see representatives with diverse heritage, just like Australia, just like the communities we represent. Mr Speaker, the anti-immigration protests on the weekend do highlight, however, that questions of belonging and inclusion linger. They linger, despite our successes. This government stands with all Australians, no matter where they were born, against those who seek to divide us and who seek to intimidate migrant communities. I want to be clear and unequivocal. Targeting specific ethnic groups, like the wave of anti-Indian sentiment that we saw over the weekend, that is racism. Full stop. No excuses, no nuance, no justification. No one in Australia should have to justify their belonging in this country. And this Albanese Labor government believe that every Australian, whatever their race or religion, wherever they or their parents were born, should be able to feel safe and at home in any community, without prejudice and without discrimination. Multiculturalism isn't just about a celebration of festivals and food. It is about ensuring everyone is empowered to participate in this democracy. That's why we continue to support the important work of our special envoys to combat Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. That's why we have an Office for Multicultural Affairs. Multiculturalism shouldn't be a policy that's tucked away somewhere in a file. It is about the character of modern Australia. It is about our modern identity, both in this nation and in our region. It should be about enabling fairness, it should be about enabling respect, and it should be about enabling inclusion. That's how this Albanese Labor government sees a multicultural Australia, and that is what we aspire to do.
The call to the honourable member for Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care. When the government was asked in August about delays to the rollout of home care packages, the minister said of the aged care sector that, quote, they weren't ready. However, as part of an aged care Senate inquiry, every provider that appeared at that hearing, including Uniting Care's representatives, said, quote, we have capacity to take on people now. Why is Labor blaming the hard-working sector for its own incompetence and failures?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for her question. As I said, in the last parliament, the Minister for Communications passed the new Aged Care Act with the support of those opposite and cooperation across the parliament. The new Aged Care Act brings along with it the Support at Home program, to which the member's question relates. Now, while it's encouraging to hear that there are providers who are enthusiastic at this point about delivering additional packages, we want these reforms to be delivered in a way that minimises disruption for older people. Now, this is system-wide reform that changes the way that care is delivered, and we're spending each and every day until the 1st of November making sure that this system works for older people.
Call to the honourable member for Canberra.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Communications. How will the Albanese Labor government's world-leading social media minimum age law protect young Australians online?
Call to the Minister for Communications and the Minister for Sport.
I thank the member for Canberra for her question, and I'm sure everybody in this place joins me in wishing her all the very, very best for the months ahead. We absolutely cannot wait for the next Junior Vice Under-Secretary of Canberra to join us back in this place very soon. Mr Speaker, today we have hit a significant milestone in the Albanese Labor government's mission to reduce online harms experienced by young Australians. We have 100 days to go until the start of our world-leading social media minimum age reforms. 100 days until we give kids 3 more years to build real-world connections and online resilience. 100 days until our children are empowered to know who they are before platforms assume who they are. Delaying access to social media until the age of 16 will protect young Australians at a critical stage of their development. It will allow families reprieve from the pervasive and persuasive pull of social media platforms. And the onus will be on the platforms, not the parents, to make sure under-16s cannot access social media. Because if social media companies are using our data for their own commercial benefit, I don't think it is too much to ask for them to also use that for the benefit of Australian kids and their safety online. This belief is backed by the findings of the 1,200-page age assurance trial published today in full. The trial report shows that age assurance online isn't just possible, but it can be done privately, effectively and efficiently. And while there is no one-size-fits-all solution to age assurance online, there are a range of technologies that can keep kids off social media and protect them from violent and explicit content. There is no perfect solution when it comes to keeping young Australians safer online, but our world-leading reforms will make a meaningful difference, which is why I was incredibly disappointed to see the Coalition team up with the Greens and Conservative conspirators to pass a motion in the Senate designed to sow doubt and fear about online age assurance. And while the Greens and Coalition seem to be teaming up to protect the interests of platforms with big tech talking points, the Albanese government is firmly on the side of parents. Online platforms can target children with chilling control.
Member for Fisher.
And now we are mandating they use that same control to give kids 3 more years to build real-world resilience. Australians should be immensely proud that as a country we are prioritising the online safety of our children and leading the world with these reforms.
Give the call to the member for Kennedy.
Prime Minister, you'd be aware that 3 appropriation bills before the House require $100 billion in funding. This appropriation 10 years ago required only $50 billion. Another $50 billion is required to house the 400,000 people coming from overseas each year, particularly 92% of them that go to Sydney and Melbourne. Wouldn't the urgent demand of 80% of Australians to stop migration save $50 billion this year, plus a reserve resource policy on gas would provide another $32 billion a year? And greenlighting the Galilee coal and its rail line, providing yet another $17 billion. Shouldn't the government be about carrying out the will of the people and creating economic development?
The Prime Minister has the call.
I'll just make 2 points to the member for Kennedy before I ask the Minister for Resources to comment on the issues in which he raises regarding resource policy. First, regarding the will of the people, that's called elections. And we have a proud democracy in this country, and I defend it. And people in this country voted for a government that would understand that modern Australia was, as the Minister has just reflected, a different nation than it was under the White Australia policy some time ago. And they voted for a government that would understand that our diversity is a strength in modern Australia as well, and provides us as well with incredible economic opportunity due to the diaspora here and our connections with every country on the planet. With regard to the figures, I don't accept some of the figures that he's raised. I'm not sure what the basis of them are, but I can refer to the latest NOM, the net overseas migration, which was down 37% on an annual figure, in the last figures that were raised in 2024. And I'd ask the Minister to comment.
Minister for Resources and the Minister for Northern Australia.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank you, Prime Minister. The member for Kennedy referred to a resources reservation policy, and I'm happy to discuss that briefly. There is now many calls across many parts of the community for reservations of gas in particular. This is something brought on by industrial users and manufacturers. Indeed, even those opposite have announced a reservation policy of their own, which is a great change from when they failed to support the Western Australian reservation policy, which has proved enormously successful for the price of gas and access of gas in Western Australia. At the moment, the government has a review into gas market regulations. There was a consultation paper that is out. There has been many submissions to that. One of the concepts we put forward as a government was around a framework to ensure that domestic supply is secured for the East Coast. Another part of our reservation resources policy goes around the Critical Minerals Strategic Reserve, which is about building up a national asset to make sure we have a supply of critical minerals, but also that we are a reliable supplier of critical minerals and rare earths to our partners right around the world. It will allow us to work with our partners together against disruptions from a position of real strength. I look forward to the member for Kennedy's support for that reserve. I note those opposite were very quick to dismiss the reserve and indeed oppose it, which is quite unusual given they support a gas reserve but not a critical minerals reserve. But that might go to some of the confusion opposite between gas and critical minerals. As we know, they have named gas as a critical mineral in the past. I hope they won't do that again, and I thank the member for Kennedy for his question.
Call to the honourable member for Adelaide.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, my question is to the Employment and Workplace Relations Minister. How is the Albanese Labor government progressing its commitment to help people earn more and keep more of what they earn?
Call to the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations.
Well, thank you, Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for Adelaide for that important question. And just like everyone on this side of the House, we are committed to advocating for working Australians. And I'm very, very pleased to update the House that on Saturday, our bill to protect overtime and penalty rates for some of our lowest paid workers came into effect. Because of the Albanese government, for the first time, retail award workers who were working yesterday and relying on Sunday penalty rates were reassured that their pay packets are now protected. Now, this was a clear commitment that we took to the election, and we have now delivered for the 2.6 million award workers who rely on penalty and overtime rates. Now, last Friday, I had the absolute privilege to meet several essential workers who rely on penalty rates. One retail worker, Rookman, who works Saturdays and Sundays to support his children, told me it was a huge relief that we were now protecting a critical part of his take-home pay. Liz, a supermarket worker who works nights, said she felt relieved by the news that our legislation passed the parliament and was coming into effect. Protecting penalty and overtime rates was a priority for the government because there were current applications in front of the Fair Work Commission that would have stripped penalty and overtime rates for workers, meaning their pay would go backwards. If, for example, the retail award application was successful, it is estimated that some retail workers could be $10,000 worse off. This threat to pay packets is why our government took clear and decisive action. Our government would not stand by and watch workers' pay go backwards. Now, of course, central to this government's agenda is ensuring that Australians earn more and keep more of what they earn. Since we've been elected, Aussie workers on average are earning an additional $9,000 per year extra. Our government has made a submission for the minimum award wage increases at the Fair Work Commission every single year since we've been in government. We've introduced important measures to stop labour hire workers being unfairly underpaid by just doing the same job as their counterparts. The Albanese Labor government has backed and funded pay rises for early educators, for aged carers, finally valuing the critical work that they do. And of course, on top of getting wages moving, we are providing a tax cut for every single Australian taxpayer. This Labor government is backing Australian workers, protecting their pay packets, helping people keep more and earning more and keeping more of what they pay.
Call to the Manager of Opposition Business.
Thank you, Speaker. And my question is to the Minister for Aged Care, and I refer the Minister to his previous answers. The Minister has just justified the government's decision to delay home care package rollouts from July 1 to November 1 this year by saying, quote, "The legislative framework didn't allow for that start date," unquote. If the government knew its own legislation didn't allow for a 1 July start date this year, why did the Labor government mislead Australians and promise to deliver 83,000 new home care packages in November last year for July 1 this year on a timeline that it knew was impossible?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for his question. What I said was that the implementation of the new Act provided the legislative framework for the Support at Home program. The implementation of the new Act was scheduled for the 1st of July on the basis of feedback from older people all across our country and of the sector themselves. We made the decision to briefly defer the implementation of the new Act to the 1st of November. From the 1st of November, we will be introducing an additional 83,000 packages in the first 12 months of Support at Home, which will be the growth component of the more than 300,000 Australians who are currently receiving care under our home care packages program.
Give a call to the member for Boothby.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Treasurer. What progress is being made on the economy, and what steps is the government taking to build on the broad consensus reached at the Economic Reform Roundtable?
Call to the Treasurer.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and to the member for Boothby, who's got one more question than the Shadow Treasurer today in question time, and focused on a really important issue, Mr Speaker, and a timely one, because on Wednesday we will get the national accounts for the June quarter, Mr Speaker. We already know that since this government came to office, we've got inflation down, we've got the debt down, real wages are growing, unemployment is low and interest rates are falling. But there is no shortage of challenges in our economy, and we expect to see some of that in the June national accounts, which reflect that period of extreme volatility and uncertainty following the announcement of the tariffs in the United States. But our economy over the last 3 years has continued to grow, and that makes us one of a small number of countries in the OECD for which that is the case. In fact, 32 out of 38 OECD nations have had a negative quarter of growth over the last 3 years, but Australia's economy has continued to tick over. Now, we know, in acknowledging that our economy has continued to tick over, and most of the countries with which we compare ourselves, that has not been the case, but we would like growth in our economy to be stronger. There has been an absence of strong growth in our economy, and that's because our economy is not productive enough. And that's what a big focus of the Economic Reform Roundtable was in Canberra in the last couple of weeks, Mr Speaker. Now, when it comes to productivity, our focus on productivity is because that is the best way to turn the progress that we've already made in our economy into sustained increases in living standards and real wages over time. We've got a big productivity agenda focused on skills and technology and energy and competition policy, and we've added to it since the Reform Roundtable as well. We're blitzing the approvals backlog to approve 26,000 homes. We're pausing and streamlining the National Construction Code. We fast-tracked the legislation to get the EPBC laws right as well, Mr Speaker. And we're also abolishing another 500 nuisance tariffs on top of the 457 we already abolished. These nuisance tariffs can often do more harm than good in our economy. That's why we've slashed more tariffs in 2 years than any Australian government in 2 decades. Now, this is about cutting red tape, easing the compliance burden on businesses, boosting productivity and getting costs down in our economy. It means we'll have removed around 1,000 tariffs over 2 years, streamlined approximately $23 billion worth of trade and saved Australian businesses $157 million in compliance costs each year. Mr Speaker, we've made a lot of progress in our economy together. We know that there are no shortage of challenges. There is more work to do, but already we are implementing some of the broad consensus achieved at the Economic Reform Roundtable.
Has concluded. Give the call to the member for Fowler.
Thank you, Speaker. Prime Minister, Western Sydney Airport was promised as a gateway for our community, delivering jobs and opportunities. Instead, it looks more like a freight hub dressed up as an airport. Without a metro rail link, we face more trucks on the roads, gridlocked motorways or freeways, and a missed chance to build more affordable housing near where people live and work. You promised that under your government, no one will be left behind. So will we finally see a metro for Western Sydney and real connectivity and not just a cargo airport? Thank you.
Give the call to the Prime Minister.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. I'm delighted to get a question about the Western Sydney Airport and why it will deliver and is delivering already jobs in Western Sydney. In particular, jobs in south-western Sydney, including literally hundreds and hundreds of apprenticeships which are taking place as part of the construction there. Part of the arrangements that we've put in place for the Western Sydney Airport construction is about local employment. Local contractors, over 50% of people live in that local community. Local contractors are prioritised for the work that's taking place there. And already when you look at the airport there, and I've had the opportunity to visit with the Minister for Infrastructure, you have what will be undoubtedly, when it opens, the most modern airport in Australia by a long way. The best facilities in terms of the entries into, the best experience for passengers going through. The deals that have been signed, the latest one when I was there was a deal signed with Air New Zealand. We know there is a great New Zealand Kiwi diaspora lives in Western Sydney as well, and that will be a very successful arrangement between New Zealand and Australia, coming on top of the deals that have already been signed between the Qantas Group, but in addition to that, Singapore Airlines. The airport, when it is operating there, will provide a massive boost for passenger aircraft, but it will also we make no apologies for the fact that there will be a lot of freight through that airport as well. And what that will do isn't just provide for higher productivity and more efficiency. It will take trucks off the Western Sydney roads, which currently go right through Sydney to get to Mascot. That makes no sense whatsoever. Together with the other major piece of infrastructure in south-western Sydney, the Moorebank Intermodal, those two things combined will transform Western Sydney. In addition to that, the Aerotropolis there will see a range of high-value industries creating high-value jobs there for locals in south-western Sydney. This is about, for the first time, instead of Sydney always turning towards the harbour, always turning towards the CBD, this is about Sydney looking towards where most people live, in Western Sydney, and will provide significant benefit. In addition to that, the public transport links to Western Sydney Airport, as well as the road upgrades, are creating jobs in the short term, but creating economic activity and efficiency in the medium term as well.
Give the call to the member for Maribyrnong.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Housing, Homelessness and Cities. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to deliver homes that Australians need? Is the Minister aware of any risks to the government's plans?
Give the call to the Minister for Housing, the Minister for Homelessness and the Minister for Cities.
Thank you, Speaker, and I want to thank the member for Maribyrnong for her really important question. She's one of our housing guns, Speaker, a group of members of parliament who have come into our chamber in 2025. and they share my view that our housing policies are amongst the most important things that the Albanese government is doing for our country. Now, Speaker, we believe that because we see our housing policies changing the lives of the people that we come to this chamber to represent. Now, Speaker, in the member for Maribyrnong's electorate alone, there are now 929 social and affordable houses in planning or construction. Speaker, almost 1,000 homes in her electorate alone. And I want the chamber to know how many social and affordable homes the Coalition built in her electorate in 9 years. Can you guess the answer, Speaker? The answer was 0. Now, Speaker, in 3 years we've got 929,000 homes on the go. In 9 years they built none. And, Speaker, you're not going to believe this, but the truth is that in the 9 years that they were in office, they didn't build a single social and affordable house in the whole state of Victoria. In the whole state of Victoria, Speaker. Now, Speaker, I share this with the parliament partly because I want you to understand the scale of the transformation that our government is undertaking, Speaker. We are taking the Commonwealth from where they were for 9 years, negligent bystanders for most of that time without a housing minister, and we have now built the most bold and ambitious housing agenda that a Commonwealth government has had since the post-war period. Now, Speaker, we've got a $43 billion agenda on the go here. 3 big things we're doing. We're building more homes, we're making sure that renters get a better deal, and we are making sure that more Australians get into home ownership. Now, Speaker, the results are starting to speak for themselves. 180,000 people around the country have got into their first home with our government's backing. We've got 1 million households around the country which are getting almost 50% increase on Commonwealth rent assistance, and we've got home building that's turning a corner. Now, Speaker, I'm asked about risks, and this is a really important one because there is no question here. The single biggest risk to the progress that we are making on housing is those opposite, Speaker. Now, it wasn't enough that they didn't do anything for a decade. For the last 3 years, they've been coming into this parliament and being housing hypocrites, Speaker, complaining about things not working and then stopping us building more homes that are desperately needed by Australians. Well, Speaker, what do the public think about this? A Fin Review poll that was published on the weekend shows that of former Coalition voters, more than 60% do not support their approach to affordable housing, Speaker. The voters can see right through them, Speaker, and they've got a really important question here. Are we going to see 3 more years of housing hypocrisy, or are those opposite going to work with our government to get on with addressing this issue so key as it is to the lives of the people that we represent?
The House comes to order. We'll hear from the honourable member for Mallee.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care, and I refer to his previous answer. The minister justified Labor's delay in delivering the 83,000 home care packages it promised by implying it was the sector, as well as elderly Australians, who, when consulted, were asking for this delay. Can the minister identify a single provider or a single elderly Australian desperately waiting for a package who personally asked him for this delay?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for her question. When I became the minister just a few months ago, the first thing that I did, the first focus that I had, was to go around to speak to as many older people, to their families, to their communities, to speak to people across the sector, to providers, to speak to workers and their representatives. And the overwhelming response that I got from all of those groups was that they needed a brief deferral of the implementation of the new Aged Care Act to ensure that the implementation would be smooth and would meet the needs of older Australians. As I have previously referred to, the Support at Home program relies upon the legislative framework that the new Act heralds, and from the 1st of November we will be able to deliver more care to more people as we achieve the next milestone.
Order. The Minister will pause and the member for Mallee will raise a point of order.
Yes, the point of order is relevance. The question was to ask for a single provider or a single elderly Australian who asked for the delay.
The Minister can answer the question as long as he's being directly relevant, and there were specifics in the question. I'm just going to make sure he's being directly relevant for the remaining 2 minutes of his answer, and given the subject matter, he is being directly relevant at the moment.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As I was saying, I spoke to as many older people, their families. I spoke to providers and people across the sector. I spoke to workers and their representatives.
Order.
And the overwhelming response, which is reflected in the public commentary from many across the sector, was that they needed a brief deferral of the new Act. That is what we have done to ensure that older people across our community continue to receive the very best care. And from the 1st of November, we will have the next milestone in our transformation of Australia's aged care system. Yeah.
The Leader of the Opposition is seeking leave to table a document. The Minister's concluded his answer.
Outlining the uniform position of the aged care sector, added a recent Senate references committee indicating that they are all in unison ready to deliver the aged care package to elderly Australians. I seek leave to table the document.
Leave has been asked. The Leader of the House.
Granted, we've already got hands up.
Order. Order. When the House comes to order. Order. Just going to bring the House to order because the member for Swan is on her feet and I'd like to hear her question.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. How is the Albanese Labor government helping households reduce their energy costs permanently? What policy proposals would distract from this progress?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I thank my honourable friend for the question. And the Albanese government's cheaper home batteries policy is 2 months old today, came into force on the 1st of July, and I'm happy to tell the honourable member and the House that in the first 2 months, as of today, 43,695 Australian households have installed a cheaper home battery, Mr Speaker, and they know and we know that saves them, if they didn't have solar panels already, more than $2,000 a year, and if they did have solar panels, more than $1,000 a year. And also, they have installed more than 785 megawatt-hours of capacity. We are installing the same capacity as a Hornsdale big battery every week, and that puts downward pressure on prices for every single Australian, Mr Speaker. Now, I have some news for the Western. I have good news and bad news for the Western Australian members. I have good news for the member for Tangney, because his electorate is now the biggest take-up in Western Australia. That means bad news for the member for Canning, who's been knocked off the top spot. He's now in second place for take-up in Western Australia. The good people of Canning are still taking up cheaper home batteries and moving toward net zero at a rapid rate, but just second in Western Australia now, not first. Now, the honourable member asked me what policies could distract from this agenda and what proposals could distract from this agenda. And, of course, there are many, and they all come from those opposite. We've seen today what I thought would be the rather unprecedented scene of a mover of a private member's bill requesting a member of his party to vote against it. Now, we saw the member for New England say the member for Canning should vote against it. This is part of the orderly and calm and considered policy process from those opposite. It reminds us that it's all about the Nationals' interest and internal politics when it comes to those opposite, Mr Speaker. I'm reminded the member for New England was recently asked why he's proposing to abolish net zero. He went on for the tough interview, of course, on the Bolt report, and he said, number one, it's about our nation. Number one, it's about our nation. But for me personally, it's incredibly personal. I have to deal with it at the epicentre in New England. He went on to say, I've got no interest in the sort of, oh yeah, it might be this, it might be that. It's nothing. It's about net zero. Well, that was very clear. But I'm reminded, Mr Speaker, this is not the first rodeo for the member for New England. I'm reminded of this headline. Nationals win an extra cabinet position for Keith Pitt as they sign up to net zero deal. Resources Minister Keith Pitt has been elevated to cabinet under a deal between Prime Minister Scott Morrison and Nationals leader Barnaby Joyce that sees the Nationals sign up to a 2050 net zero target, Mr Speaker. What principles? What great commitment for what they stand for. The member for New England. Talking about principles.
Order. Members on my right. The Minister's just going to pause and take a breath, and we're going to hear from the manager of opposition business.
Misunderstanding Order 64. I think he is referring to Ambassador Keith Pitt that he appointed to the Holy See.
Just in terms of correct titles, they don't refer to people not in the parliament. But order, no. Just remind members to refer to people to correct titles. Members of the diplomatic corps aren't in that category. But order. The minister will return for 18 seconds.
To assist by tabling the article. Nationals win extra cabinet position for Keith Pitt as they sign up to net zero deal. It's just a reminder, Mr Speaker, it's all about internal politics for those opposite. It's all about the leadership of each party. It's about the Nationals' interest, not the national interest. Meantime, we will get on with helping Australians with the choices they want to make to afford cheaper energy as a result of a cheaper home battery.
Has concluded. Give the call to the honourable member for Mayo.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care and Seniors. The department informed the Senate 120,000 older Australians are waiting to be assessed for aged care, some as long as 12 months. This is in addition to the estimated 100,000 waiting for up to 12 months for their approved package to materialise. Is the government deliberately slowing the aged care assessment process so that the reality of approximately 200,000 older Australians waiting up to 2 years for care isn't revealed?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for her question. The Labor government is delivering very ambitious reforms to the in-home aged care system to make sure that every older person can get the care they need in the comfort of their own home for as long as possible. Recommendation 28 of the Aged Care Royal Commission called for one single assessment process, and that's what the government is currently delivering. We're rolling out a new aged care assessment system, one that will be quicker, will reduce wait times and improve the experience for older people and their loved ones. Rather than needing separate assessments as their needs change, it's designed to make it easier for them to access the care they need. Now, we acknowledge that wait times for aged care assessments are longer than we would like, and we are working on that as we speak. Record levels of Australians are seeking home care services. Last year alone, over 521,000 home support and comprehensive assessments were completed. This is an incredibly complex system, and the assessment waitlist contains those seeking lower-level care, along with crossover and duplication of numbers on the NPS. The two systems can't simply be jammed together to create a bigger number. For example, 99% of people waiting for a home care package at their approved level are already receiving home care through a lower-level home care package or approved for Commonwealth Home Support Program services, and so may already be receiving a level of care. Speaker, these matters that we've discussed today are exactly why we're reforming this system from the ground up. Big reforms don't happen overnight, but we're working hand in hand with assessment organisations, including the states and territories who provide the majority of assessments, to ensure a smooth transition, to minimise impacts to older Australians, and importantly, to get them the very best care that we can as quickly as possible.
The call to the honourable member for Newcastle.
Thank you, Speaker. And my question is to the Minister for Social Services. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to better support victims and survivors of family and domestic violence, including in our social security system?
The call to the Minister for Social Services.
Thank you so much, Mr Speaker, and I want to thank the member for Newcastle for her question. There are few people in this parliament who have done more to stand up for victims and survivors of family, domestic and sexual violence than the member for Newcastle, and all of us acknowledge that work. Mr Speaker, too many Australians have experienced family, domestic and sexual violence, and too many of them have experienced financial abuse and coercive control. It's particularly bad when that happens in the private sector, when debts are run up by perpetrators of violence. But we know that it also happens in government systems, and the social security system, which is supposed to protect and support victims of violence, should never be able to be used by perpetrators to financially control or coerce victims of domestic violence. And so we'll be introducing legislation later this week to expand the special circumstances debt waiver
in social security. That means that Services Australia will be able to take a more common sense and more compassionate approach. Where there are debts run up by perpetrators of violence, they should not be left for victims of violence to pay. We've seen examples where perpetrators of violence have run up thousands of dollars worth of debts and then walked away and left the victim of the violence to suffer the consequences of that. But, Mr Speaker, of course, this is not the only thing that the Albanese Labor government is doing. No government has invested more in frontline services. No government has invested more in programs working with men to stop them using violence. No government has invested more in adolescent boys or children who have been the victims of domestic violence to make sure that they're not going to go on and perpetrate violence in the future. We've introduced the Leaving Violence payment and made it permanent, up to $5,000 to support victims of violence as they're leaving home, because too often we've asked, why doesn't she go, when the reality is that she's had no choice in the matter. $1.2 billion in emergency and transitional housing, and I have to compliment the Minister for Housing for this work. 10 days paid domestic violence leave. Changes to family law that make the system safer and simpler. Too often we've seen the family law system also used against victims of violence. Record legal services funding, and I have to particularly draw out the $800 million extra funding for family violence legal services. Mr Speaker, all of us, I'm sure, agree that one victim of domestic, family or sexual violence is one too many. And all of us acknowledge across the parliament that we have a role as parliamentarians to lead change in this area. Our state and territory colleagues have a role. Every single Australian can play a role too in keeping people safe where they should be safest, in their own homes.
Prime Minister.
I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.
Prime Minister is seeking to add. Order.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. I wish to add to an answer to a question from the member for Calare to me at the last question time, Thursday, 28 August, where I indicated I would get more detail and get back to the member at the first opportunity, and this is the first opportunity. The member for Calare asked me about the availability of the National Emergency Medal for emergency responders, community workers and volunteers for their acts of service during the floods in the central west of New South Wales in 2022. I am advised that the Independent National Emergency Medal Committee has requested additional expert information on the timeline of events and overall impact on individual areas and localities. This will enable the committee to consider whether the Central West flood should be recommended to the Minister, who would be the Assistant Minister to the Prime Minister, who I have allocated responsibility for, to be considered a nationally significant emergency for the purpose of the National Emergency Medal. Under the National Emergency Medal Regulations 2011, the responsible minister must not make a recommendation to the Governor-General to declare an event as a nationally significant emergency unless the responsible minister has received advice from the National Emergency Medal Committee. To date, over 530 national emergency medals have been awarded to individuals who served during the 2022 flooding event. The National Emergency Management Committee will next meet in November this year and will be considering further events for possible declaration at that meeting, pending the receipt of this expert advice. And I commit to the member for Calare that I will inform him at the first available opportunity as to their deliberations.
Call the Leader of the House with papers.
Thanks, Speaker. And in doing so, I just acknowledge the members of the Lebanese Muslim Association, the LMA, and Sheikh Safi, who've been in question time in the public gallery today. Speaker, these documents are tabled in accordance with the list circulated to the honourable members earlier today. Full details of the documents will be recorded in the votes and proceedings.